When we moved into the new house, everything felt perfect. A big place, peaceful surroundings, and most importantly, affordable. But there was one thing that felt odd from the very beginning. A room that always remained locked. The owner just said, "Don't open it," but never gave a reason. I thought maybe it was just a storage room or had some old memories attached to it, which is why they kept it shut. The first night was fine, but on the second night, I heard a strange sound, like something scratching against the walls from inside. I brushed it off as my imagination, but when the same sound came again the next night, a weird sense of uneasiness crept in. Then, one night, something even more disturbing happened. I felt as if someone was standing right behind that door. For a moment, I could swear I heard a faint whisper, like someone was calling me from inside. "Don't go there." The thought echoed in my mind, but my curiosity kept growing. I told myself it was just in my head, just paranoia. But then I saw it. The lock on the door, it was moving, on its own. That night, I couldn't sleep. No matter how much I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, something inside me knew the truth. Something was in that room. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every small creak of the house making my heart race. The thought of the lock moving on its own kept replaying in my mind. Was it just the wind? A trick of my imagination? Or was something actually inside? At around 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. The house was silent, unnervingly so. As I stepped into the hallway, a chill ran down my spine. The air felt heavier, colder, like I had just walked into a different place altogether. I slowly made my way toward the locked room, my bare feet making no sound against the wooden floor. When I reached the door, I hesitated. The lock was still there, but this time, it looked different. The metal seemed darker, almost burnt, as if it had been through a fire. My heart pounded as I reached out to touch it. The moment my fingers brushed against the cold metal, a shiver ran through my entire body. It wasn't just cold, it felt lifeless. Taking a deep breath, I pressed my ear against the door. At first, there was nothing, just silence. But then, tap, tap, tap. A slow, deliberate knocking sound from inside. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. My mind was screaming at me to run, to forget about it, but my body refused to move. And then, a voice, faint, hoarse, almost like a whisper. "Help me!" I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. My pulse was racing so fast I thought I'd pass out. I turned around, ready to bolt back to my room, when suddenly, bang! Something slammed against the door from the inside, hard enough to make the walls shake. My body reacted before my brain could, and I ran. I ran straight to my room, slammed the door shut, and threw myself onto the bed. I wanted to believe it was a dream, a hallucination, sleep deprivation messing with my head. But deep down, I knew better. That wasn't my imagination. Something was in there, something that wasn't supposed to be. The next morning, I decided to confront my landlord. I needed answers. When I called him, his voice went stiff the moment I mentioned the locked room. "I told you not to open it," he said. "Forget about that room. Just stay away from it." "But why?" I pressed. "What's inside?" Silence. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Not what? Who?" And then he hung up. A chill ran down my spine. Who? What the hell did that mean? That night, I was determined to figure it out. I couldn't just pretend nothing was happening. So, at exactly midnight, I got up again. This time, bringing a screwdriver with me. If no one was going to tell me the truth, I'd find out myself. As I approached the door, my body tensed. The air felt thick, like walking through invisible water. I put my hand on the lock, and the moment I did, the temperature around me dropped. My breath came out in white mist. My fingers felt numb. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but I pushed forward. With shaking hands, I wedged the screwdriver into the lock. The second I did, a sharp pain shot through my hand like an electric shock. I gasped, but didn't let go. Bit by bit, the lock loosened, and then it clicked open. The door creaked as it slowly swung inward. The room was dark, pitch black, even though the hallway light was right behind me. I raised my phone flashlight, and what I saw made my blood freeze. The walls were covered in deep scratch marks, long, jagged lines as if something, or someone, had been clawing at them for years. The air smelled of burnt wood and something else, something foul. And then, in the farthest corner of the room, I saw it. A chair, an old, rotting wooden chair. And on it, a figure. At first, I thought it was a mannequin, but then it moved. Its head lifted slightly, and I saw its face. Pale, hollow, sunken eyes staring straight at me. Lips cracked and stitched shut with thick black thread. My breath caught in my throat, and then it stood up. The chair scraped against the floor as it moved, the sound piercing through the silence. My entire body locked in place. I wanted to run, to scream, but I couldn't move, and then it took a step forward. My phone flickered, the flashlight dimmed, and then, in a voice that sounded like 100 whispers speaking at once, it said, "You shouldn't have opened the door." My breath stopped. My legs felt paralyzed. That thing, whatever it was standing just a few feet away, its hollow eyes locked onto mine. The air around me grew suffocating, thick with something I couldn't explain. My phone flickered again, the flashlight dimming, and for a split second, everything went dark. And then, it moved. I don't remember how I broke free from whatever force was holding me in place, but suddenly, my body reacted on pure instinct. I turned and ran. I didn't look back, didn't care about the noise, didn't care if I woke the whole neighborhood. I sprinted down the hallway, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. Just as I reached my bedroom, I heard it, a whisper right behind me, so close it felt like someone was breathing down my neck. "You let me out." I slammed the door shut and collapsed against it, gasping for air. My entire body was trembling. My mind was screaming, trying to process what had just happened. What had I done? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner of my room, eyes locked on the door, listening. But there was nothing. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels unnatural, like the air itself is holding its breath. By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed to leave. I grabbed whatever I could, stuffed it into a bag, and didn't even bother packing properly. I just needed to get out of that house. But as I rushed toward the front door, I froze. The locked room's door was open, wide open, and the chair, the rotting chair, was empty. I didn't wait to see what that meant. I ran. I got in my car, started the engine with shaking hands, and sped away, never looking back. A few days later, I called the landlord one last time. I had to know. "What was in that room?" I demanded. "Who was in there?" A long silence. Then, in a low, exhausted voice, he said, "Something that was never supposed to leave." I hung up, my hands still shaking. And then as I sat there trying to calm myself, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. A figure, sitting in the back seat, smiling. If, after hearing this story, your door starts moving on its own, or you hear whispers in the middle of the night, just know that you didn't just hear the story of the devil's room, you felt it. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video. Just one comment from you will let me know that you felt it too. And if you haven't subscribed yet, well, maybe the next horror won't just be a story. Maybe it'll happen to you. So, subscribe now, before it's too late.